Hey, this is Scott, and I have to apologize. I have not been on in a few weeks. It's a long story, but years ago, hurt my back on a photo shoot. And for the most part, it became very livable, and it didn't really bother me to the point of stopping me from getting my daily work done. But out of the blue, 5 weeks ago, it just got horrible. And it was just absolutely killing me, and standing, sitting, the only relief was laying down. So I had this horrible half-life of trying to do some things in pain and then just going to lay down to try to get some relief. Obviously, that is not a good life. 3 weeks in, I was like, this is ridiculous, it's not going away, and I got a back brace, which helped, but still, it wasn't going away. You know, as much as I was giving it myself as much rest as I could, it was not calming down. So I went to the doctor, they gave me some pills. That seems to have controlled it a little bit. It is still there. I use the back brace to try to make sure it doesn't flare up, so hopefully it will go back to sleep and go back into its long slumber as it was before, because it was not fun. And at least now I can get back to work. So what I wanted to do is, one of the things I had promised was I wanted to do an extension on the 70-300 lens, because I had reviewed it very favorably. I also reviewed it with the 1.4 extender very favorably. I think it's great value, huge boon to us Fuji shooters who want to get into nature, and there's just no way we can afford these multi-$1,000 prime 600mm plus type lenses, and this lets us play in that world, and on a good day with good light, you're going to get wonderful pictures. Absolutely. But the question was, okay, it's an extender. It's not the natural lens, so it's going to have some degradation. Now, usually 1.4 extender does not show up too much. You know, you really got to pixel peep to see how it's hurting. But there's other trade-offs. The fact that it's also affecting your aperture. We're already, sitting there at a not particularly fast lens in the first place, and then we're slowing it down even more with the extender. But, so the question was, is the extender worth it? Or should I just use my 70-300 naturally and crop? And it's a question that, I had in my head too. It's like, no, is it worth it? Could I just crop? Now, usually with a APS-C sensor, I don't want to crop too much. I try to get as much out of it as I can. So on the surface, which when I brought the 1.4, I had the thought that this was the way to go. But we're going to look into it when we come back, and you're going to find out it's kind of a complex issue, and I'll give you the basics to think about it, and you can decide for yourself what the way to go is. And I'll be happy to hear what your thoughts are down below. But stick with us, and we'll be right back, and we'll look at those images. Okay, here's what I did. I took some pictures outside. I wasn't entirely happy. I don't think I could control the environment as well. So I basically decided to go in and take your classic picture of a bookshelf. And what I did was took a picture with the 1.4 extender on, and I took a picture with the 1.4 extender off. And if I go up to here, I can show you on these two pictures. This was essentially a picture with the 1.4 extender on. This was a picture with the 1.4 extender off at 300 millimeters. And down here, if you're not familiar with capture one, you can see that you can see the ISO, the speed, f-stop, etc. So this one's at 420. This one is at 300. Then I went in Capture One, I cropped the image so it looks like this one. Then I took these images into Affinity Photo, similar to Photoshop, and I resed the 300mm one up to the same pixel resolution as the 1.4 extender one. So I up-resed it so we would be comparing pixel to pixel. I did not do any increased sharpness or anything else. I just did a stair-step up-res of the image. If you're not familiar with stair-step up-resing, sometimes you can increase the quality of your up-res if you do not do it all in one leap. If you sit there and kind of move it up 1,000, and then another 1,000, then another 1,000. So in 3 or 4 steps, get to the target resolution, but not do it in one shot. My experience in the past has been that you get a better quality up-resed product by doing that. And of course there are other products out there that you can use to up-res that might even improve. My experience has been that they take too long, so I'm not particularly a fan of them, but to each their own. So here I have my modified photos. So I have my unmodified 1.4 extender photos, and I have a 400 ISO on this side, 3200 ISO on that side, and down here I have the modified and up-resed files in, again, 400 and 3200 ISO. And the nice thing is, if you look at it at this size, I did do some minor tweaking of just exposure. I was trying to get these to be similar in exposure. No major changes, just usually let's see, nothing changed there, a 0.08 exposure boost there, 0.19 there, and nothing there. So just minor exposure tweaks to try to get them to look similar. Now, where I took a picture, even though I did use a bounced flash to throw some light into here, there was a window, so there is a little bit of variation in the lighting, but I don't think it's going to stop us from evaluating these photos. So, to get into it now, if you look at these photos, all of them, even though they're different ISOs, at this level they look pretty equal. I don't see any one being particularly better than another at this level, and that's something to always keep in mind, that it all depends on what you want to do and how big you're going to make these images. So sometimes people get a little bit too caught up in the pixel peeping when they're never really going to push their images. Now, I sometimes do print big, so it's important to me to look a little bit deeper. Another thing I'll throw in about pixel peeping is that if you pixel peeped enough images, you will notice that sometimes one camera does better on one image than another. So there's a lot of factors that come into play. So I would just say don't get too caught up in anything. But let's dig into our question at hand. Now, I thought this was a particularly good area to look at here. So we are at essentially 25% now. And again, not seeing a huge difference, maybe a little loss here. 33%, again, not seeing much going on, maybe a little, but unless you're comparing them like this, you'd never know. And getting in a little bit closer, maybe now some stuff is starting to show up. 67%, 100%. So here we're at 100%. So this should be fairly telling. I'm going to move this over because I want to concentrate more where this lighting and everything is more comparable. And if we look at it here, you can just start to see that maybe between ISO 400 and 3200 we're losing a little bit. But again, not a whole lot, because that's the other thing. When you have something that is well lit, not really pushing the dynamic range, even ISO 3200 could look pretty good on Fuji cameras, as long as you got light on it. And this is well lit. We're not got a lot of crazy shadows. You can see the shadows are a little noisier in here on the higher res 3200 ISO pictures. And again, over here you can see that there's more noise there. But again, you really have to be looking for it. So again, even at this level, I'm not seeing at 100%, I'm not seeing a major difference. Maybe starting to get a little bit softer, but you really don't notice things till you really start getting in. And here we'll go in, and let's just be ridiculous and go to 400%, because this is where we're going to finally make our point. But then we'll look at different parts of the picture. At 400% magnification, we can see that there is definitely a loss in detail. But again, that's at 400%. If I back this off, I would sit there and say even at 200%, it's there, but you gotta be looking for it. But you barely notice it at 100%. You know, if you look down here and here, these are going to be the best. These are 400 ISO, and yeah, if I sit here and really stare at it, there's more detail in there. I can see that the printing. But here at 200%, you can sit there and see, there is the screen from printing, the dots from printing, and here they're just kind of all mushed together and looking blurry. And again, these are a little bit more detailed here. You can see here, because it's at ISO 3200, especially over here, it's starting to get really rough in there. But again, 200%. So this is, again, just one part of an image, and I think 400 is maybe like a little bit too critical to look at. But let's look around at this picture in different areas, because here we have a texture, and we can see we're seeing a little bit something in there, going into some shadow, obviously. We're seeing some loss there. Go over here, the same kind of thing. That again, with that teleextender, we're getting more detail, but maybe not enough for a lot of people to care about. We're getting detail of texture in here that we lose in the higher ISO, and then we lose down here. Look at 400 to 400. It's getting lost in there. Some other things. Same thing, definitely sharper, more detail there. It's a little fuzzier here. I thought this one old book here with a here, this is black, so this gives us, again, you can see it's lost a little sharpness, but again, 200%. Is it going to matter to you, to your photography? Now this old one, I believe it's a modern Prometheus, the original Frankenstein book. It's kind of interesting because this is a fabric, so we can see the weave of the fabric. And again, it's not, you know, we see more effect from the loss of ISO over here, which makes it interesting because when we put on that extender, we also need to push up that ISO in order to maintain exposure. So all these things are those little things you have to like balance out about stuff. So I think, you know, that wherever you sit on the side of this argument of which is better, you can declare yourself a winner. You know, I can sit there and say, well, technically, the tele-extender is giving us slightly more detail, but it is so slight, and we have to get up to 200% for it to truly start to be noticeable, that I think if you are the anti-extender team, that you can sit there and pretty much go, oh, this justifies it. You don't need that extender. It's not going to do anything for you. But again, some of you might sit there and say, no, I want every little bit of detail because I'm going to push my images as far as I possibly can. So there you have it. You know, there's a lot to be said on either side. So I think you could go with it or without it. As always, if it was interesting to you, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe and help me grow the channel. As is, I don't make any money doing this. This is just something things I'm exploring for myself, and if I can share it with you, then all the better. So see you next time, and hope you enjoyed it.